briefly about our financial position, and certainly all of you are aware, we're coming through 5 years of some of the worst economy we've ever seen in this country. I will tell you that City of Casa Grande has weathered that very, very well. We are starting to see an uptick in the local sales tax revenue, which is a positive. However, I think we've recognized that we are not going to get back to where we were in 07, 08. I think this is the new norm. So we're prepared to build from this point forward. Our budget last year was about $40 million, our general fund budget was about $40 million. This year it's about $35 million. We will work through that budget and make sure that we can continue to provide all the services that we've historically provided. To put that in perspective for you, I will tell you that our general fund tax revenues are about where they were in 06. We do a citizen survey every couple of years, and when we did the last survey 2 years ago, the number one ranked concern in the community was transportation and the road system. And I point that out because we finance all of our road work through the Highway User Revenue Fund, and that's been a pet whipping boy for the state legislature over the last couple of years. And our HERF revenues today are where they were 10 years ago. Think about that for a minute. 10 years ago, the city was about half the size it is today. Our road mileage is probably half of what it was 10 years ago. Price of gas has gone up, so all of the building products you use for road work have gone up. And we're doing that with the same amount of money that we had 10 years ago. I think it's a great tribute to the staff that we've been able to keep up as much as we have, but that is a single issue that I think we are going to be faced with over the next 5 to 10 years, and nobody seems to have a good solution for it. So just be aware that we understand what's going on, we're prepared to deal with it as best we can, but it is a huge issue in our community, and in our state for that matter. We aren't planning at this point in our budget process, and we are starting to look at the next budget year, which for us is July 1st to June 30th. We are not anticipating any service cuts at this point, not anticipating any layoffs. Talked with the city manager, he indicated we're still a couple $1 million out of whack with where we need to be and where we are, but I think we'll get there by the time we adopt the budget as a council. So I think that's all positive stuff. As I said, we are starting to see some of our sales tax revenue tick up a little bit. If we can keep gas from going up to $5 a gallon, we may be able to continue that trend. And I only say that because I'm only saying what all you are thinking. I mean, I hope it doesn't get there, but I suspect it will. I talked a little bit about kind of looking back to look forward. 10 years ago, here's a snapshot of Casa Grande 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there were 25,000 people in town. We typically had about 150 home starts annually. There wasn't a mall out on the east side of the freeway, and there was very little development on the north end of town. We also had a struggling historic downtown. That becomes important as we go through this today. Fast forward up to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we had a population of about 35,000. We were experiencing about 2,500 home starts every year. New mall was just opening. We had a lot of commercial and industrial growth going on in that 5-year time period. Fry's Marketplace, some of the larger facilities were opening up. We had a lot of industrial growth going on at the same time, and we still had a struggling downtown. A year ago, stood up here last year, we had just gotten our census numbers. Population of the community was 48,500 and change. And put that in perspective, over a 10-year period of time, we had doubled our population. And I said earlier, HERF revenues are where they were 10 years ago. General tax revenues are where they were 5 years ago. Population is now 50,000 people, plus or minus. Home starts, and when I did this last year, I was a little bit surprised because home starts last year were about 2 years ago, were about 125 home starts. And I will tell you, there's lots of communities that 125 home starts a year is huge. And I frankly was surprised because you hear all of the reports of foreclosures and short sales, and certainly Casa Grande has been hit as hard as any other city with that. but I was surprised to see that there were still 125 home starts in 2010. Had virtually no commercial industrial construction going on a year ago. There was a little bit, but not very much, and we still had a struggling downtown. Fast forward to today. Today we continue to grow. We're probably slightly over 50,000 people today. And I will tell you that there's a lot of cities in Arizona that have declining populations, and certainly there's lots of places around the country that have declining populations. And so I think we should be thankful that we are still growing, even though it's been fairly small by our historic standards. We still have a struggling downtown. On the commercial industrial front, 2011, we had a lot of announcements of things that were going to come. Certainly the biggest news of the year has been the Phoenix Mart, and I know many of you have been to several presentations, so certainly wasn't my intention. So I really don't want to spend a lot of time today talking too much about the Phoenix Mart project, because I don't think that, yes, it's a huge project, yes, it's a great thing for the city of Casa Grande, it's a great thing for Pinal County, and at some point in time, I think the state of Arizona will realize it's a great thing for the state of Arizona too. But it's one of many projects that we've announced in the past year, and I think some of the others have been overshadowed. So I just like to kind of run down the list real quick, and these are important because I think a lot of these you're going to see start construction in 2012. Phoenix Mart, Ritchie Brothers, Sam's Club, and yes, Sam's Club is coming, and hopefully they will start sooner rather than later. There's a new company across the street from the property called ITS, and I suspect 85% of the people in here have no idea that they're over there. They've purchased the old Palm Harbor mobile home facility. They are in there renovating right now, and this is a business that was brought to us through our partnership with the Central Arizona Regional Economic Development Foundation. So I'm suspecting that we will hear some announcements, public announcements about that fairly soon, but they are a company that works in galvanized wire products. They have purchased the building over there, and they are doing renovations as we speak. On our Planning and Zoning Commission in the next couple of months, we're going to have a project called North American Energy. It's a company that mixes lubricants. They'll be located in the industrial park to the south of the property. And again, the initial look, I think, is 40 to 50 employees growing to 120 or 30. So I suspect we'll see them start construction in 2012 also. We also have had a lot of prospective industries that have come and talked to us. We've had a German food processing company that has come in and talked to us. And I feel pretty good that we're going to land them. Again, not a huge employer, but as I tell people all the time, I would much rather have 10, 50-person firms than one 500-person firm, because it's really hard to absorb 500 people when a factory closes. It's much easier to absorb 50. So I think that we're headed the right direction. Certainly 2011, we had a lot of announcements. We've got to work through those and get them on the ground and get the jobs created. The projects I've mentioned, one of our sources of revenue, and we need to be very careful, and certainly our city council has proven this over and over again. We are going to see a huge jump in our construction sales tax in 2012. And the natural tendency when that happens is, oh good, here's $4 or $5 million we didn't expect, we need to go spend that. We got where we are today through the tough economic times because the council that certainly predated me on the council made the decision that those one-time revenues they were going to put into one-time expenses. We spent our rainy day fund, so we need to replenish that. Certainly we as a council have not talked about it, but I think we all agree that we want to be careful. We got where we are by being careful. We need to continue to be careful, and I think that as we work through the next few years' budget, even though we will see that increase in construction sales tax, I think we will be very careful how we allocate that and make sure we allocate it on one-time expenses. From a capital project standpoint, and I said when I started that I was a little surprised as I went through my list of things we did that we'd done much more than you would have expected for a down cycle in the economy. And I will tell you, over the last 5 years, the city of Casa Grande has probably spent $200 million in capital projects. Some of that is bond money, some of that is impact fee money, some of that is some of that one-time revenue that I talked about. But $200 million over the last 5 years is, without a doubt, the largest building boom the city of Casa Grande has ever seen. So let's talk about some of the projects we finished in 2011. We finished the wastewater treatment plant, and I know I mentioned that last year in my talk, but that project was a $60 million, almost 3-year-long project. It is now open for business, ready to go, and it doubled the capacity at the treatment plant, and that's important as we look at potential new industries coming into the community that we can offer up. We've got plenty of capacity in the treatment plant, and let me tell you, everyone we've talked to wants to know what kind of capacity we have, can we use it, and the fact that we've got 6 million gallons of capacity out there puts us ahead of a lot of other people in a very competitive process. Fire Station 504, we had the grand opening about this time last year. Serves the northeast corner of town, brand new fire station, very, very nice, and it was funded predominantly through the bond issue that was approved 6 or 7 years ago and development impact fees. We opened the public safety building last year. Certainly if you've not been out there, beautiful facility. I think I told everybody that the rock in the front was donated, so there was no cost to the city for that. But a beautiful facility, and certainly a lot of people said, well, why are you put it so far out of town? If you take our planning area today and cut it in quarters, the police station is almost right in the middle. So even though it seems a long way out of town now, it's not as far as you think it is, because pretty soon that will be the center of town. You know, we talk about 10 years ago. Think about where the town was 10 years ago. Pretty much stopped at Rodeo Road, maybe a little north of Rodeo Road. Pretty much stopped at Arizola Road, maybe. Now we have spread out all the way to the freeway, beyond the freeway on the east side, and I do think we're going to see growth starting to happen on the west side and the south side. We also constructed a new courthouse, and I know it's a project that Judge Ferguson has been working on for at least 15 years, and we were finally able to complete it. If you've not been in it, it's a beautiful building. I think it architecturally was very well suited for the campus where the City Hall is, and I think has really prepared us moving forward for the next 15 or 20 years with a courthouse. We also started televising our council meetings. You saw Augustine up here earlier today, and he was talking about how this will be on not only the website, but will also be on Channel 11. I know you all have better things to do on Monday night, particularly on football season, but you can watch it live Monday, the first and third Monday of every month on Channel 11, and he does televise it some subsequent times during the week. So if you've ever wondered how council meetings operate, here's your opportunity to do it in the comfort of your own home. We also had a fair amount of private investment last year. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware of the Frito-Lay Near Net Zero project that was done. Frito-Lay's goal is to become a zero carbon footprint in the country. And they changed it from net zero to near net zero because there's a little component they haven't been able to fix yet. But they have solar power, they have mass burners for all their waste product, they're switching their fleet to propane and natural gas. Really huge undertaking, and I think, and certainly I don't want to speak for Frito-Lay and I don't have any inside info, but I do think that for Frito-Lay to expend that kind of investment in our community means that as they look at expansion plans around the country, we have to be very competitive with the other Frito-Lay facilities. So excited about that. ACO Polymer expanded here in town, and I suspect, again, there's probably half of you have no idea who ACO Polymer is. They're a German-based company. We are the North American headquarters in Casa Grande, and they make construction products out of a polymer material. They doubled their size last year, completed the work about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and they have expanded their number of employees that they have out there as well. On the non-industrial side, we do have a brand new prep school here in town, and it turns out that my mentor goes to that school, so I got a good briefing today on it. But the Mission Heights Preparatory School on Cottonwood Lane also was built last year. Talk for a couple minutes about what we anticipate to do in 2012. Probably the first one you're going to see is reconstruction of the downtown. And as I talked earlier, you notice 10 years ago we had a struggling downtown. 5 years ago we had a struggling downtown. A year ago we had a struggling downtown. It's my hope that, 3 years from now, whoever the mayor may be can stand up and say we've got a very successful downtown. And I think the first step in doing that is to fix some of the infrastructure. Very challenging, very difficult project, but there were some renderings up here, and I'm sure that Augustine will run it again when I'm done. Take a look at it. It will remake the fabric of downtown and hopefully be the kickstart we need to be able to say that we've got a very successful downtown. A lot of people ask me, why do you care? And I hate to keep harping about jobs, but I will tell you, when prospects come into town, they all want to go downtown and see what your downtown looks like. So I think by doing the work we're doing down there, I think, again, that positions us a little bit ahead of everybody else if we can show them a downtown that looks like it's coming alive and that we've got a plan for where we want to take it. One of the other projects that we're going to start working on in the next couple of months is the south side. City over the last couple of years, south side of the tracks, I should say, on Florence Street. Over the last few years, the city has slowly assembled quite a bit of property over there, and if you're a frequent driver across the tracks, you'll see that a lot of the junkyards that used to be there have been cleaned up. The few that are still there are in the process of being cleaned up. We now need to redevelop that south side of the tracks. And certainly it's our goal to do that so that it is complementary to the downtown and it will help attract people through the downtown so they'll stop downtown and see what we have there. So we're going to embark on that process. Hopefully the council will consider this at our next council meeting Monday night. But very, very important because, again, it's a reflection of how we treat our historic portions of town, and I think it's really important that we do the improvements downtown and start looking at what we want to do on the south side of the tracks. We are also going to do a library expansion. This is a project that was part of the bond projects that were approved by the voters. We're going to take the downtown branch of the library, add about, I think, 10,000 feet to the existing structure because the library has become increasingly busy every year. And even though we recently opened a second branch, we're still bursting at the seams. So hope to start that project sometime in the fall probably, and we'll probably have that done this time next year. Associated with that is also a remodel of the dispatch center. The old police station, we have left our dispatch center in that building, and we're going to remodel it, upgrade it, expand it, and have a modern, up-to-date, ready to serve the 100,000 people that we will someday become in a state-of-the-art dispatch center. We also, I think, long-term want to look and see if we can combine dispatch services with all of our neighbors into one location. And certainly I know Mayor Smith from Maricopa is here, and we haven't really talked about it, but we feel like it's better economy for all of us. We can provide better service. And if we have a new dispatch center that has the ability to do that expansion, that's good for everybody. We also will begin planning a community recreation center. And I talk a lot about the bond issue that was approved 7 or 8 years ago. And the last of the projects on that list happens to be the community recreation center. It was always intended that it would be the last project we built. And I think we're at a point now where we're ready to start into that planning and design process. We are concerned about how we're going to cover an operating deficit. We've got an excellent staff that's working on a solution to that problem, and so hopefully by the time we're ready to start building that, we will have resolved how we're going to operate the facility. It is, again, was very highly ranked in our citizen survey of needed services. And as we look at the community and the things that we offered 10 years ago and the things we offer today, we're way ahead of it. But I do think we need to have a community center to provide those quality of life issues that are so important to the people that want to call Casa Grande their home. We also are going to, we've been working for about the last 2 years on a strategic plan for our police department. And while there's a lot of hand-wringing about it, the reality is that Casa Grande is no longer a small city. You know, we've kind of passed that threshold where we're now a big city. And because we grew so fast, I think the police department didn't have the opportunity to grow with us. And I think if you talk to any of the officers that are here today, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but the way you manage a police department of, 50 officers and the way you manage a police department of 200 officers is different. The technology is different, the way you approach it is different, and we just never gave them the tools to do that. So over the next 12 months, we now have an adopted strategic plan for the police department, and our goal is to work diligently to implement that strategic plan. And I think it has made a difference. Certainly in the conversations I've had with the public as I've talked to them, they seem to feel like, we're trying to do something about the problem. And I don't for a minute mean it as criticism to the police department, because they've done an outstanding job. But think about 25,000 to 50,000 people in the space of 10 years. It's phenomenal growth, and we needed to get in place the tools to let them do their job, and I think we're headed down that direction now. One of the other pictures you probably saw out here, and I'm going to talk a lot about quality of life today. There is a project that is being spearheaded by our Youth Commission called the Garden of Sunshine Memorial. And I'm going to give a shameless plug to the kids that are working on it, because it's a volunteer effort. They need volunteers, they need money, they need materials. It'll be located next to the city pool. And it's really a commemorative garden for those young adults who are young people who have lost their life in unfortunate accidents. Was really prompted through a request from the Ide family, who lost two of their children in a freeway accident. The rendering has been up here, and again, I'm sure Augustine will start the show up again when I leave. But if you can volunteer, if you can provide money, if you can provide material, coordinate that through our Youth Commission. I think it's a great project, and I think the fact that the kids have taken, I'm old. The young adults have really taken it on as a mission they want to do, and I think that we all need to encourage that kind of leadership and initiative in our community. And then one of the other projects that we're working on that we really haven't unveiled to anybody yet, and we're still working on the details, but Arizona Public Service has a program called Focus Future. And I think many of you probably worked on the Focus Future program we did 7 or 8 years ago. And we've decided what we want to try to do is have that same philosophy used in a focused look at the downtown. Because we have some problems down there. There's no secret about that. We can fix the cosmetic things, but what we're hoping to achieve through this Focus Future look is to come up with some ideas of what we can do to attract people down there, businesses down there, and again, end up with a vibrant downtown. So we're hoping to kick that off late spring, early summer, and certainly appreciate the help that APS has provided to get us to that point. I wanted to talk a little bit about some selected projects we did over the past year, and some of them I've talked about before, but I cannot stress the quality of life issues and community involvement enough, because as I travel around the state and I go to different cities, and I confess I'm prejudiced before I make this comment, but I do believe that our citizens are more engaged than most of the citizens I find across the state. And I think it shows in the volunteer efforts we have, and also some of the projects that we've worked on. And that's one of the reasons why I put in the shameless plug for the Garden of Sunshine Memorial, because I think that the community will step up and really help the Youth Commission and the other youth in the community to make that happen. So I wanted to talk about 3 or 4 specific quality of life and community involvement projects. And certainly the first one, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, and I talked a little bit about it last year, is the Casa Grande Trails Project. We have had, over the last 2 years, 14 community trail builds. We've had over 830 volunteers that have gone out there and spent the day building trails. And if you've been one of those volunteers, you know this. If you haven't been, it is hard physical work. 830 of them have gone out and helped on those 14 days. That group has constructed over 4 miles of trails. We also have been fortunate to get 3 groups of AmeriCorps volunteers. It's a national program. They come in for about 8 weeks, and they've come in to trail build. The 3 groups we've had to date have constructed about 7 miles of trail. So that's 11 miles that have been built through community involvement and volunteerism and just ingenuity. We do have another group out there right now. They came into town yesterday, as a matter of fact. I don't know if Parks and Rec has got them started up there yet, but if they are indicative of the other groups, they typically build about 2 miles for every 2 months that they're here. If you've not been up there on the trail system, phenomenal way to get some exercise. We also have developed in the last year 2 trailheads. There's one at the end of Erica Road. Go down Sunland Gin Road, turn west on Erica, go all the way to the end, go about another half a mile, and you'll see a big parking area. There are maps. The trails are marked. They are, if there's skiers in the audience, they're marked like ski slopes. There's green, blue, and black, and the black is the hardest. We also have a trailhead at the end of Peart Road, both of which have been developed in the last year. And what I really like about that project is the fact that it is 100% volunteer done. And I think it's a tribute to the community that says, hey, we care enough about this, we're going to go out and put in some hard work and get this done. There's also a regional benefit to that, and I know they've got a trail build either last week or next week. I've got one coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and the city of Eloy has volunteered to come out and serve lunch to those people. So excited to see that we're starting to develop a regional partnership with Eloy to take ownership of part of that mountain, because if you look at where it is, part of it is in Eloy, part of it is in Casa Grande, part of it is in Pinal County. So we'll work on the county next year for a trail build as well. David. Oh, I'm sorry. One of the other programs that I really haven't talked much about in the past, but I really appreciate, again, the volunteerism and community commitment that it shows, is our smoke detector installation program. And what really prompted this program started about 5 years ago. We had a couple of fatalities in a house over off of Saguaro, Ocotillo area, and killed 2 people in the house when the house burned down because they didn't have smoke detectors. So the fire department took the initiative to say, we need to do something about this, and they started this smoke detector installation program. Any of you guys help on that day? Just out of curiosity? Really fun day. They get about 350 volunteers. We start the day at Dorothy Powell Senior Adult Center, and they go out into a selected neighborhood, knock on every door, install smoke detectors if they don't have them, replace them if they don't work, put new batteries in them if they do work. And yes, we have had fires in areas they put detectors in, and they have saved lives. Last year, they had 350 volunteers that showed up at Dorothy Powell. They installed 1,200 detectors in over 330 homes. Makes a difference, and I can't say enough for the volunteers that do that, and for our fire department for coming up. It's a problem, and they said, you know what, we have this problem, how are we going to fix it? We're going to fix it with volunteers, and good for them, because I think as we move forward over the next 10 or 15 years, that volunteer commitment is going to be the difference between being a successful community and just being another community that's looking for help. Next one I want to talk a little bit about, and again, I've talked about this a couple of times in the past, is the Casa Grande Performance Institute out at the Casa Grande, or at the Francisco Grande. And I think what's important about that, I am not a soccer guy, never have been. I'm trying to be, but I'm not there yet. But 12 of the 18 Major League Soccer teams have visited that facility in the last 2 months. And I had the good fortune to go out there and watch the Vancouver Whitecaps scrimmage against the Seattle Sounders. And those of you that are soccer moms and dads, I got to tell you, these guys are on a totally different level when they play soccer. You know, you watch the kids, they all run to the ball, you know. You watch these guys and they're all running away from the ball. But they did exhibition games in both Tucson and Phoenix. People paid $20, $30, $40, $50 to come out and watch them and sit in a University of Phoenix stadium and look at a field. Every one of you could have gone out there with a lawn chair and sat 20 feet from them and watched them do practice games. If you've not gone out there, I would really encourage you to go out. You will see world-class soccer, It's actually paid a couple of interesting dividends, because when the Vancouver Whitecaps were here, our staff thought, gee, why don't we go out and get a bunch of player cards, like the old baseball cards I used to collect as a kid, and get these guys to autograph them. We have an autograph of the rookie phenom from the Vancouver Whitecaps that I just sent off to the Canadian consulate that I met at dinner here a couple of weeks ago. And what's important about that is I had dinner with, he was sitting at the table next to me, we were talking. The Canadian investment in this country is getting bigger every year. And when he found out that we had the Vancouver Whitecaps out at our facility, he was like, I wish I would have known that. I would have come down and watched. Well, you know, how do they get there? They've got to drive through town. That's a positive. So I think that those little steps with the CGPI have really been an enhancement to the community and the things we do. We've also had Canadian and New Zealand teams out there at the Olympic and national team level. We have a resident program out there that currently has 50 students in it. Last year they had 20-some students. They had 13 that graduated from high school. Of the 13 that graduated, 2 of them were drafted by the pros. The other 11 were given full-ride scholarships to universities around the country. So they're trying to grow that program, and it's good for us because you'll start seeing our high school soccer teams, I think, get better and better. Our club teams get better and better. They have put on some clinics for our local youth to be able to go out there, not only the players but the coaches, to make our offering better. They are expanding to lacrosse as well. We had, I don't know how many know this, but we had the largest lacrosse tournament west of the Mississippi here last year in November. 5,000 lacrosse players. Lacrosse is the fastest growing sport in the West Coast today, and it's where soccer was 10 years ago. The kids that play out there, they also run our youth program, so all of our soccer, all of our football programs are run out there, and they take much better care of their fields because they have pros and almost pros playing on the fields all the time than we could ever hope to do on our city facilities. And that's not say anything against our city facilities. They do a great job, but when you have people playing every day with pickup games versus structured games, you have to do much more to keep the grass alive. So they are some of the best fields in the state of Arizona. We are getting a reputation as a soccer center, not only because of the coaching and the players, but also the facility. And why that's important, try to get a hotel room in this town right now. I was talking to the gentleman that's the manager of the Holiday Inn at an event here a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, I said, so how's your occupancy been? He looked at me and says, Bob, he said, I don't have a room available till the end of April. That tells you that we're going the right direction. We're getting a lot of visitors in here. I do think that the Performance Institute has had a huge impact on our hotel occupancy. We can measure that to some degree by the hotel room tax that we collect. Historically, it had run about $100,000 a year. Last year, it was $200,000. This year, it'll be slightly over that. So we have somehow doubled the hotel occupancy in our town over the last couple of years. And that's important because people that come here to stay in a hotel, they're probably going to eat in a restaurant. They're probably going to go look at a business and maybe buy local gifts for friends, whatever. So I just think it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our community. Third one I want to talk about is a brand new one, and this is certainly near and dear to Mr. Powell's heart. It's Cowboy and Indian Days. We had worked for several years with the Odomtosh group and finally got to a point where we just couldn't continue to help sponsor that program without getting some information back on where the money went. So a group of local volunteers that had been involved, many of them had been involved with Odomtosh 20, 30, 40 years ago, stepped up to the plate and created what we call Cowboy and Indian Days. And I had the good fortune to go out there one day and watch the event, and I got to tell you, I haven't been to a rodeo in probably 25 years. Had a blast. It's a week-long activity. We have one of the best rodeo grounds in the state of Arizona, and most people never pay attention to that. We have a championship roping competition out there, and Dick, help me, it's the Mike Survey roping competition, and it is national stature. You have national level people out there doing roping competitions. They competed for 3 days out there. They had an all-Indian rodeo. And I think that's important because if you think back on how Odomtosh started, it was really a celebration of our Native American neighbors. And I'm so proud of the Cowboy and Indian Days Committee that they said, hey, we need to go back to those roots. We had an all-Indian rodeo. Happened to be one of the days I was out there. Great event. And I think, I don't want to speak for our Native American neighbors, but I think they also appreciated seeing competitors out doing rodeo. And it's a fun way to spend a day. So when it comes back in February of next year, I would encourage all of you to take an effort, go out there. We also have I shouldn't take credit for this, so excuse me, Dick. They also have a Canadian Day event out there. And certainly, we all see a lot of the Canadian winter visitors license plates, but many of them come from ranching backgrounds. And by having the Canadian Day event, it was a day that all the Canadians in the community that visit here every year can come out and demonstrate their ability on horses. And it was, I think you said you doubled the crowd from last year. Huge event. Don't want to pound into everybody's head this whole deal about economic development, but right now the Canadians have as much money as any other country in the world to invest in the United States. So if you can bring them down here in the wintertime, show them an event that is dedicated to the Canadian population, maybe some of those people will think about expanding their business down here. So I think there's linkages in all those things. I think that for a second-year event, they had a great turnout. I think they were fairly happy with it. And I think at the end of the day, it kind of celebrates the Western heritage that we started from. And again, I think it's always important to look back as you look forward. I'm a big regional guy, and I also think that what's good for us, what's good for our neighbors is good for us as well. And I think that certainly as we look at Eloy and Coolidge and Florence and Maricopa, I want them all to be successful, because if they're all successful, that's good for all of us. And because of that, we're involved in a lot of regional organizations, and I'm just going to kind of rattle them off so you guys get a sense of how many regional groups there are. Central Arizona Regional Economic Development Foundation. The City of Casa Grande is also a member of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. Central Arizona Association of Governments, the Pinal County Government Alliance, and that was important this year because of the redistricting that was going on. We really used that as a vehicle, as a voice of all the Pinal County government entities to try to influence how the redistricting took place. And while I think we were wildly successful in the supervisor districts, we were sort of successful in the congressional districts, we failed miserably at the legislative district level. But I also look at that and I say, you know what, if we hadn't done anything, it might have been worse. So we at least got in the fight and did that through the Pinal County Government Alliance. We're also part of a group called the Lower Santa Cruz River Alliance. And all of you that have lived here for some time, you know how bad the flooding gets south of town when we have a big storm in Tucson or in Mexico. This is an alliance that's been put together to try to resolve some of the flooding problems down there over the next 5, 10, 15 years. We're an active member of that. We're a member of the I-11 Coalition. There's a brand new freeway being proposed that will connect I-10 somewhere in the vicinity of Casa Grande with Las Vegas and provide trade opportunities north-south between Mexico and Canada. Vitally important to us because we've got I-8, I-10, the railroad, but we have very poor connectivity to the north. And as we start looking internationally, I think we have to look at what's going on north of us as well as east and west and south. We also are a partner in a group that is being put together between Central Arizona Association of Governments, Maricopa Association of Governments, and the Pima Association of Governments. That's important because they are starting to plan the Sun Corridor. And we're right in the middle of the Sun Corridor. And so we need to be at the table with MAG and PAG. We need to make sure that they understand what our needs and wants are so that we don't let them plan our future for us. I happen to sit on that committee and very vocal about where I think we need to go. And I think it's a step in the right direction because whether we like it or not, we're part of the Sun Corridor megapolitan area, and we need to have a voice at the table as to how we plan that. want to end by talking a little bit about where I see us going over the next 10 years. And I think that I hear a lot of people that are concerned about Maricopa County growing over us and rolling over us, or Tucson, Pima County doing the same thing. And I think at the end of the day, we need to create our own identity and be comfortable enough in that so that when Maricopa and Pima County come knocking at our door, we can tell them, here's who we are, you fit into us, as opposed to having them come down here and say, here's what we want you to be. And I really think where that niche is, and I tell young people all the time that I try to learn something new every day, and I'm smarter today than I was yesterday. And as I have learned more and more about supply chain economics and the international global environment, I really think that Casa Grande needs to be looking internationally. And I will tell you, there's nobody else in the state of Arizona that's doing that. Why is that important? You know, certainly Phoenix Mart has helped open my eyes to that. We have a railroad that runs right through here. They come out of the port of Long Beach, and we've all seen the trains running east and west with the cargo containers from the ships. The ones that are running east are full of product. Did you know the ones that are running west are empty for the most part? They load them back on the ship in Long Beach, empty, and they take them back overseas, empty. So the niche that I think we need to look at is how do we go about filling up some of those containers in Casa Grande, be it a regional distribution center for warehousing, where we're putting product back on those trains and shipping them to the east or to the west, or whether we start making product here that we take to the west. That's a perfect niche for us. We've got double tracking now on the UP. They're working on a classification yard out in the Red Rock area that will sort trains. It's a natural progression for us to look at that. And I've been criticized a little bit with some of my fellow mayors up in the valley that we don't share very well some of the ideas we have for this whole international concept. And there's a good reason for that. You know, and I don't mean to say disparaging things about Maricopa County, but they believe that everything that happens in Arizona needs to happen there. And we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves first. And I really think that this international concept is where we need to go, and I think it's got tremendous potential. I'm an engineer by training. I don't know anything about supply chains. But what I have learned is you take it off the boat in Long Beach, and the Long Beach harbor is plugged up. You take it to some place, go through customs, reload the trains, reconfigure the trains, and you send them on to Texas, Iowa, Kansas, wherever. We need to position ourselves so that instead of having to go through customs in Long Beach, they can actually go through customs here in Casa Grande. And I think that's very doable here. I think that we're working that direction to have what's called an inland port here. Try not to say that too loudly. I had a meeting a couple of years ago with some of the government officials up in the Phoenix metro area. They knew we were doing something down here. They didn't quite know what it was. And lo and behold, they held up a project for almost a year because they thought they could get it moved up to Maricopa County. And that's why I think it's important that we just kind of continue to do our business here. When the time comes that Maricopa County shows up at our doorstep, we can say, here we are, here's what we are, here's what our economy looks like, and you know, we're glad you're finally here. I also think that the international business, and certainly I talked with my mentoree today, or mentoree, how important it is for us to create jobs that bring our best and brightest back here. And right now, we need to work on that. Phoenix Mart is a huge step in that direction. I get people asking me all the time, what kind of jobs are they going to offer? Well, let's see, we need multilingual people. And I don't mean bilingual, I mean multilingual. We need IT people. We need logistics people. We need marketing people. All professional level jobs that maybe we can get some of these young people that are going away to college to be able to come back here and have a good paying job with a future locally and become part of our local leadership. I also hope that over the next 10 years, as I travel around the state, and you know, it's been a brutal couple of months, as my wife will tell you, because I've been driving to Phoenix seemingly every day. But I think we're slowly developing a reputation of a community that really understands what we need to do to get new businesses here. I think 2012, we're going to see lots of activity. I think we've turned the corner in the local economy and in the state economy. And I would love to say that 10 years from now, Casa Grande is a leader not only in rural Arizona, but a leader within the metropolitan, greater metropolitan Sun Corridor region in terms of job creation, looking where we need to go and how we need to get there. I don't really have a watch on, so I have no idea how long I've talked. I'm sure I've bored everybody to death. I would like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy day to come. I hope that you've learned where we are, where we're going. We've got a great city council. We've got a great city staff. I think we're in good hands, and I think we've got a direction where we want to go. We tend to be people in the community that say, hey, we have a problem, we need to fix it. We'll take care of that problem, and not necessarily look outside to get people to help us. There's nothing wrong with that, but the first step in that journey is deciding you want to take it yourself. So I'd like to thank you all for coming today. Hope you enjoyed the program. I hope I see you all next year. Thank you very much.